All right, well, I'm going to kickstart us off here because we have a lot of great things to talk about. My name is Emily Abbate. I'm the host of a podcast called Hurdle, as well as a wellness journalist, wellness expert. And I'm so excited to host today's Global Running Day conversation on behalf of InsideTracker. I am joined today by some rock stars. So I'm going to introduce each of you, and then please tell us a little bit about yourself. Kicking things off with Sally McRae. How you doing, Sally?
I'm doing great. I actually I just logged on, people, because I'm going to take off my jacket and show you what I was just doing. I had to tell Emily, I just did my blood test. I'm here in Southern California, and I needed to do an update on my InsideTracker blood test. So I just hopped on just now, but I'll tell you what, for anyone that's listening right now, I do confess, I hate needles. I cannot watch when I do the blood test. Like, they put my arm out, I have a good vein, and they're always like, okay, you have a good vein. I'm like, I know, I can't watch. Just tell me when you're done. But
it's coming from a woman that like does outrageous endurance feats, but like that little needle, man.
So true. We all have our thing, right?
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Sally.
I am a professional ultra trail runner. I really love to run in the mountains. I've been doing this for the past decade, and let's see, I'm a mother of two. I have a daughter, Mackenzie, and my son is Isaiah. And I also do a little bit of coaching. I have a fun little strength and running app, a podcast, and I'm writing a book. So that's a little bit of what I do during the week, what keeps me busy. So, and then I get to do fun stuff like this.
We love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Next, I want to introduce you guys to Rahaf Khatib. Rahaf, how you doing today?
Good. How's everyone doing?
So good.
Good.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so mainly stay-at-home mom who doesn't stay at home. I have 3 kids. I started running late, very late, after I had my third. In 2012 is when I started running, and it's just kind of crossed the finish line, and then I was hooked, and I kept coming back for more, but never in a million years did I imagine it to grow this big. I was on the cover of Women's Running magazine in October 2016. I was I'm the first Syria where I was born, to run all 6 world marathon majors. I've raised money for various causes, for Syrian refugees in Michigan, for brain cancer, for so many other causes, and just trying to inspire my community to get out there more.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That's really, really stellar. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And then last, but certainly not least, Amanda Brooks. What's going on, Amanda?
Hello. So I've been running for about 20 years, and then I've been coaching for about 10. So I got really lucky that something that was my passion for running and my journalism degree kind of came together. So I turned that into a website that has about 2,000 articles, and my book came out a couple years ago, and I really just love working with runners. I lovingly call them the middle of the pack. So the folks who are always telling me, oh, I'm a beginner, even though they've done 15 half marathons. And really for me, that's fun, talking about running and just running because it brings a lot of joy. So it's exciting to be able to keep, I think, sharing that with others and get people excited for it.
Okay, so between the 3 of you, and also if you are watching today, feel free to answer in the chat. Raise your hand or write me if you are running today on Global Running Day. Okay, so we've got a lot of enthusiastic runners in the bunch here, and I'm so excited to be here to have this conversation with you about all things on the run, and of course, some of the insights that we garner from using InsideTracker. So first and foremost, all of you, and feel free to chime in. This is a casual conversation. As competitive athletes, do you still find joy and relaxation on the run, or is it hard for you to like kick back a little bit these days?
I'll let someone else take that because I don't consider myself competitive. I have pretty much always run just because I love it.
Sally, do you find relaxation on the run, or are you like always going with a goal in mind?
Yeah, I think every run has a purpose. And so sometimes the purpose is I'm just going to enjoy this time on my feet. I think that's really important to pretty much I think like anything that I do in life, because I have this intent of like, I want to give my best and be my best. But I think sometimes there's like a confusion between what giving your best means. And I think sometimes we see it as the same thing as, okay, it needs to be hard and intense. Like giving my best means I need to come back completely trashed every time I run. And so I've learned over the years that no, like sometimes giving my best is just being totally immersed in the run and enjoying the beauty around me and the ability that I have, this freedom to roam on my feet. I think that sometimes that is giving my best is taking in that moment. So the long runs though, like last week I got to run up Mount Whitney, and there wasn't a lot of people on the mountain. It's the tallest mountain in the lower 48 states. I mean, that was incredible. And I knew, okay, I'm not doing any type of workout. There wasn't going to be like intensity added into it. It was just about running up in thin air. And yeah, I absolutely allowed myself just to relax and think about, this is so cool. I get to do this.
I love that mentality. I get to do this. Speaking of getting to do things, Amanda is wearing a sweatshirt. Amanda, do you want to show us the full sweatshirt so we can see what it really says?
See it all.
My heart says yes, but my coach says no. So there can be a plethora of reasons why your coach says no. Most recently for myself, I've been dealing with a little bit of, oh joy, plantar fasciitis. I'm sure the three of you, being accomplished runners, have all navigated injury in the past. Talk to me about what advice you would offer to someone who maybe needs to listen to that coach a little bit right now and is having a hard time taking that back seat. Amanda, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I think one of the sayings that people hear me repeat a lot is one body, many races. So you need to take care of that injury now. Like, I know you've been training for something and it is soul crushing to not get to do it. But if we're able to maybe take care of this now with a few weeks off, instead of pushing on that leading to 6 months off, having said and done that from experience myself in my early days of running, I did exactly that. I just pushed through until I could not run at all. So I'm always trying to kind of get into that mindset of like, let's make sure this is a long-term, like you can keep going. We don't make anything catastrophically worse. And then also I am huge on physical therapy. So prehab and rehab. I think the second any little thing pops up, I'm like, how quick can we nip this in the bud? And then keep it from coming back is the bigger thing. So not PT for like a week, but how do we make this part of a long-term process?
Rahaf, have you ever dealt with an injury that prevented you from going after a goal that you had set for yourself?
I have. It was actually PF as well. And I had ITB syndrome. So I've had both, but I think that, getting your gait analyzed first before you start is, something I would recommend, because that's something I didn't do. And when you go in, they assess you, and then they tell you where your weaknesses are. So like my weakness is always my glute, and makes my calf overwork. So my calf is tight, and then it makes my foot turn out. And then that's how you kind of get the ITB, irritated. So, or overworked. And, getting your gait analyzed is definitely my tip for everybody out there who wants to start running, or even if you've already started, you can just pop into a PT somewhere and just say, hey, can you get my gait analyzed? And show me where my weaknesses are in my body, and talk about my biomechanics. And I think that I wish I could have done that first, because I had no idea that you had to do PT and strength training and all of that kind of stuff. So those were my injuries. And of course, I'm still working on that forever. I think I will always be working on that. And it's not something you can just, like Amanda said, do for a week and then forget about it. You kind of always have to do it. So I try to do it during commercial breaks, when I'm watching TV, or at night after dinner when I'm laying low, just kind of like do those things and never forget about that. And just, it's about longevity. As runners, we want to be running till we're 80 or whatever, right? So like, I always envision myself to be that one woman on TV that's 80 years old that's still running. Like that's who I want to be. So it's about longevity. So if you take care of your body now, then you can keep running forever. That's how I see it.
Forever. That's the goal.
Run forever. Yeah.
Sally, have you been down and out?
Let's see, it's been a while, and I love that both you guys talk about PT and taking care of your body and all that. When I first started ultras, I just like looked to social media to what everyone else was doing. There wasn't really like a clear path to how to train. And so I was like, wow, people are doing these ultras like every other week. And it's like, it looked like just so much high mileage. So I just jumped right in. I think I did my first 50 miler. I ran another 50-mile race 5 weeks later. And then a week later, I ran another 50-mile race. And then like 2 months later, I ran a 60-mile. I mean, I was so injured by the end of that first year of ultra running because I just didn't listen to my body. I just thought I just have to run a whole bunch and race a lot. So I had IT band problems.
Mm-hmm.
I had weak glutes, like same thing. And so I just decided, man, I really love to run, but I don't want to have injuries. So I really then incorporated strength training. But so I haven't really dealt with injury since then. I am in the gym, quite a bit, and anytime I feel something, that's kind of like my rule. If I wake up and I have like a tightness or I just like feel off, then I'll go to the gym and I work on that specific thing immediately. So I'll spend like sometimes 20 minutes just sitting on a mat, rolling something out, or like doing mobility exercises. And then I will then go and do strength exercises that targets that thing. So and if I feel good and we've worked stuff out, then I'll go for my run, or I'll change my run. So maybe I had like a tempo run planned for the day. Okay, well, I'm going to do strength and mobility, and then I'm just going to run easy. And then maybe we can do the tempo tomorrow. So far that formula has worked. I know that no human is perfect and able to avoid injury. I mean, that's just part of the journey for all of us. But I think the strength and mobility has definitely helped over the year. But I've had a stress fracture, IT band stuff. I ripped my hamstring one time in a race. Like it was this really muddy race, but it was really crazy because what I found out was I had torn my hamstring. I was bombing down this really muddy mountain because of this really bad tightness I had in my back, like up in my shoulder. And it was just so fascinating when I went to the doctor to learn about that. They're like, you're just all connected. So you have to, a lot of times our weaknesses that we have, it isn't just because like it's the ankle, it's actually your hip, and it isn't that your hamstring was weak. You had so much tightness that was pulling up your back, pulling up into your shoulder, that all it needed was just something to like tear it. So I'm really fascinated with the human body. And I think as runners, we feel our body with every single step. You can't like hide from it. Like, in the pool, you're weightless, on a bike, you're sitting, but with every step in running, it's like you feel everything. And so, I think, what was that?
Especially running on the mountains.
Yeah. Yeah. Or running down one too. You're like, wow, it's a lot of pounding, but yeah, very, very true. It's, so I've just become fascinated with studying the body and how to make it better as we run.
And, you know, this theme of strength training, and we're really getting into this idea of longevity here, something that, as Rahaf said, like we want to be running hopefully until we're 80 maybe or beyond that. So why is it important to really start thinking about longevity in terms of health and athletic performance now? Amanda, I'll let you start with us.
Oh, great question. I mean, I think all the little things we do just add up over time, right? Like, I wish when I had first started running, anyone talked about strength training, but they didn't. 20 years ago, the only place I saw strength training was in like muscle magazines. It was not in any like Runner's World type magazine. So I think now I feel like more runners that I talk to are running because it's mental health, it's stress relief, and they're recognizing good for like their body health and not just this aesthetic goal. Because that was, you know, same thing 20 years ago when we were teenagers and college, everything was just aesthetics. It was, how is this workout going to make me look? And that was as far as we thought. So I love that there is a little bit of shift. People are starting to think about like, no, I want to be active as I get older. I want to be able to do things and enjoy my life and move around. And seeing more of these senior athletes, I feel like is extra motivating to a lot of us, because I don't remember seeing that in the past, right? So now we're seeing these senior athletes and they're breaking world records and they're freaking adorable. And I think that's awesome. And I want us to keep seeing more of that, because it helps give us kind of that picture of, if I keep taking care of myself, what's actually possible.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, senior athletes, adorable, cute, but let's also give some kudos to these women. We're 4 women here together speaking on Global Running Day. There are now women like Sarah Hall and Kira D'Amato who are breaking records and doing such unbelievable things after having children, and showing that you don't need to be like fresh out of high school, fresh in college to be the next great thing, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not breaking records, but I can totally relate with that. You know, having 3 kids, I would have to hire a babysitter to come in so I can run my 3-hour long run. I mean, you know, this is something I was committed to and I was serious about, and I didn't let that stop me. And I know how much it made me feel like, you know, mental wise, like it really helped me feel really good about myself, because sometimes if you're just a stay-at-home mom, you feel like, okay, what am I doing? What's my purpose? And other than just taking care of the kids, I need something more, something bigger than me. And I felt like running really gave that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that. And I know also, Sally, you definitely had to make some considerations and shifts when it came to both family planning and your activity.
Yeah. Just, you know, hearing what Rahaf just said, I mean, I remember my very first long run for my first ultra, I had to get a babysitter too.
Mm-hmm.
My husband's work schedule at the time, it was so busy. I mean, sometimes he would, you know, he'd leave like at 7 in, and sometimes wouldn't be back till like 6:30 or 7 at night in all those early years. And I remember I had seasons. So I had a first season of great frustration where, you know, I'd look up training plans online and I was like, okay, I have to do this today and this today and this today. And this is the right way to train. And I realized I can't fit into that structure. Like my life doesn't allow me to go out and do an 8-mile tempo run. Like, I don't know when I'm going to do that. My kids were so close in age too, and they were essentially toddlers. And so I just decided, well, that mindset of like, okay, it doesn't need to be perfect, it needs to be done, right? So I would break things up into 2 or 3 workouts. So I'd like, all right, I'm gonna do 2 miles running with the stroller. So we go, you know, running the stroller. And then like this brand new gym opened and they were offering free kids club 2 hours a day.
Same here.
Yeah, it changed my life.
Yeah.
But I also knew, and having children, I was like, okay, they might want to go in some days, or like they might blow out of their diaper at one point. So like I'd go and like I drop them off, and then I get on the treadmill and I'd like try to run fast. And I just got creative. I told myself it's not going to look like everybody else's workouts, but I'm going to make it fit for my life, because I don't want to be like a disgruntled mom or frustrated with my kids because I can't go run. Like I want to show them what it looks like to carve out a dream that is very specific and unique to your own life. Like what makes it unique? Like even for moms, it's like we are all parenting different types of children. And so, you know, our lives and our schedules are so different. And so I know that, you know, in those early years, I had to let go of what everyone else was doing, what everyone else's running schedule looked like. And I had to really carve out this new path for myself. And that led me to, you know, that's where the discipline came in. Like sometimes I was running at 4 a.m. before my family was awake, or, you know, I saved up money to buy this really cheap treadmill, and like, okay, I'm going to run during nap time on the treadmill. So, looking back, I'm like, wow, what a wild journey that was. But I'm glad that I was okay with letting go of how I thought it was supposed to be, and just kind of wrote my own story. So.
Before I ask you some specific questions about InsideTracker, which obviously brought all of us here today, I do want to touch on maybe if any of you have another tool that you're using when it comes to thinking about that topic of longevity. We mentioned the importance of strength training, but what else are you thinking about? Is it mobility? Is it your diet? Is it perhaps other recovery tactics? Hit me.
I feel like it's the whole day. It's all of it, right? It's like, I'm thinking about hydrating and resting and recovery. I think one for me that has probably been top of mind for a really long time is cortisol. So I had hormonal issues, like starting when I was 29, and that was sort of my first introduction to cortisol. And now I really sort of understand that, and how your whole life plays into all of your stress. And so thinking about that in terms of my workout versus what's going on in life. And so that is one that I think I'm very conscious of and probably talk a lot about too. Especially when I hear people talking about their super intense workouts in the middle of 80-hour weeks and sleeping 2 hours a night. And they're like, everything feels awful.
Yeah.
You're stressed out.
Well, what would be like one of the learnings or the biggest takeaways that you could share with us when it comes to cortisol?
Honestly, for most runners, the biggest thing is actually learning what an easy run is supposed to be. So easy is not a pace. We always think it's like, this is my easy pace. And that's kind of the end of the story. So it's really learning how to tap into what feels easy on a given day and know that it's totally fine, that it's going to change all the time. It may change from morning to night on the same exact day even.
Yeah. Rahaf, what about you? How do you prioritize longevity? What do you think about when it comes to taking care of your body?
For longevity, like I said, I really am starting to get more picky about what races I'm going to do. Prior, I mean, I knocked out 11 marathons in like such a short period of time. And being a new runner at the time also, it was a bit much, but I had a goal of finishing the 6 world majors. So that was kind of what kept me going. But now that that's all done with, I'm kind of like really reassessing, sitting back and telling myself, okay, what really do I want out of this? I am trying to build a little more speed and cutting back on longer distances, and just trying to hopefully maybe do more triathlons. I've done 2 already, but I want to do more of those. So, and just trying to figure out what I like and trying to venture a little away from just road running. And maybe even try mountain.
Yes, I was going to say, come on the trails.
1.5 marathon. It was so much fun. It was a lot of fun. I'm just so scared of twisting my ankle, like on Terran. That's that's really what scares me a little bit. But
yeah, the more you're out there, the more comfortable you would be. And then I always preach it, but the single leg exercises, balancing on one foot, get those ankles strong. But
yeah,
it's
bilateral.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Gotta get it all in. Gotta get it all in. Well, all right. We've talked about longevity. Now I do want to talk a little bit specifically about the insights that you have learned from doing InsideTracker. Sally, why don't you start us off over here?
Okay. Yeah. The biggest thing that I've really loved about InsideTracker that's helped me is just being so specific about increasing certain foods into my diet that maybe I wasn't thinking about. I have always loved to eat. I mean, food is like a big deal to me. Also, I think too, because I started traveling so young, like food is such a social way. It's a way that people show love and care to each other. So I love sitting around a table, and I love to eat. So for me, food is important to what I do, but I notice that certain foods just don't sit well with me. So maybe I just don't feel great. And even like some healthy foods, like maybe I was eating too much of, like, I know kale is all the craze, but if I have too much kale, I don't feel good. It's the weirdest thing. And so when I started doing InsideTracker, I learned, okay, my iron level is always like borderline low. And so it was always encouraging me, okay, eat these foods to increase that iron, which obviously is helping with the energy. But I've just loved that I can work on being specific about the foods that I'm eating in order to make me feel better and to recover better. So I think, from looking back on what I was eating even 5-6 years ago, I've changed my diet just to make sure that, okay, if I want more energy, I want to recover better, I want to improve this biomarker, I'm going to eat, this instead. So yeah, that's probably like been the biggest thing, is that feedback. Because in the past I've done blood tests and they can be like, oh, you're low here and here and there. And I just think, okay, I guess I'm taking a vitamin. But on one hand, I've always been like conflicted, like, is this a good vitamin? Is it really giving me all that I need? And I know that food is healing, food is medicine. And so I have to do that every day anyway. So if I can just increase the intake and focus on the right foods, I've noticed a tremendous difference in just the way that I'm able to perform.
Amanda, what's one of the biggest revelations that your InsideTracker analysis gave you?
Gosh, I mean, I feel like there's so many. I've literally been using it since 2015. So I agree. I always like just being able to see those food recommendations. But I think the other thing is that I know I'm being compared against other athletes. And so the results are how to optimize how I feel and how I perform, because in the past I would get a result back and maybe I was in the normal range by like 1 point. And so that was it, you're fine. But with this, because it kind of shows you like, okay, like here are some of the things you could be doing so that you get up here and you actually feel better. And usually for me, one of the reasons I'm looking at it or telling an athlete, I want you to check this out, is when they're having energy issues. And so I am consistently low in vitamin D. For someone who has lived in Florida, lived in Colorado, I am outside nonstop, but I can't eat eggs. And so like that really easy, good source, it almost doesn't matter. I just can't get high enough. But if I wasn't testing, quite honestly, I would be in very bad shape, because it's usually in the red when I will finally test. And then it reminds me, like, you have to supplement. This is not optional. Like, you're doing poorly. And then amazingly, of course, I feel better. So I think sometimes it's just that peek inside when something feels off and you can't pinpoint it.
Yeah. And, it's so interesting that you say that, like that little reminder, and it can be so helpful, because honestly, I feel like these days we've almost come to accept that we're like not supposed to always feel our best because of A or B, and we make excuses for it, right? But it doesn't need to be like that. You don't need to live your days waking up and having a slight headache and being like, oh, well, I just wake up with a slight headache. Like, that's how I operate. Like, know, you can get insight into what's going on within your body and then take the necessary steps to do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And it's at your fingertips. That's what I love. Like, it's like you have your information all right there, and it's so accessible. And then I went to the doctor for a different issue, not about my blood, and then they asked me, well, what's your hemoglobin? And I was like, I don't know, but wait, hold on. So I pulled up my app and I pulled it up for him, and he looked at it and he looked at the app and he was scrolling through it. And
this is like, amazing.
This is really cool.
Starts describing the InsideTracker panel for all of his patients.
Yeah. So it's cool that you have it right at your fingertips. Like, you can just, swipe through it. It's easy. You don't need, a doctor's permission or a doctor's note or anything to do that. It's like it's very convenient. And also, I think I was shocked to learn that my cholesterol is kind of borderline high, because I'm genetically predisposed to that from my mom's side. Horrible cholesterol my mom has. And she's tried everything. But at the end of the day, she had to take medicine. But I'm not at that point yet. But it's crazy to me that being an athlete who's active like literally 6 days a week, and everything's normal except for that one cholesterol issue. And I was shocked to learn that. So, and I think Shalane Flanagan had the same issue.
Yeah.
Her cholesterol was high. I think she said it at an InsideTracker video. But, and it's good to know. I would not have known that had I not got tested. So now I'm trying to eat oatmeal every single day and have more beans and be a little mindful of cholesterol. I cut out meat. So, because that's also high in cholesterol and all those things. So we'll see in my next test.
I will say too, that I have seen so many athletes go into the doctor saying that they do feel fatigued or something doesn't feel fine. And they get sort of this response of, you're healthy, you're fine. Oh, you run, and they brush you off. So that's for me also been sort of a huge piece, is I have control to go get information and then decide how to act on it, because it's very hard sometimes to get someone else to really, like you said, understand that you waking up tired or cranky or with headaches is not normal and should not have to be your normal.
Yeah.
You're speaking to my soul, Amanda. Speaking to my soul. I also love how before, when we were talking about longevity and things to take into consideration, you mentioned the key topic of hydration. Of course, as we know, we're easing into these summer months, maybe some of us a little bit more easily than others. That random 95-degree day in New York yesterday really threw me for a loop. But Amanda, I'd love to talk to you just for a second about warmer running, about being smart as we get out there in the heat. What would you say your best practice tips are when it comes to lacing up and getting outside as we go forward through the next 3 months?
Yeah. So, I lived and trained in Miami for a long time, so fully versed in the hot and humid running. I think the biggest thing, honestly, for a lot of people is just sort of coming to that mental understanding that it doesn't just feel harder. It really is physically harder on your body. So when your paces are slowing down, it's not that you're doing anything wrong. Your heart rate goes up consistently based on the temperature going up. Your heart rate goes up even more when it's hot and humid, because your body can no longer cool itself down. So instead of worrying about your pace, go back to the effort. So am I keeping the effort easy? Or if it's a speed workout day, am I hitting the appropriate effort level? And you're still getting the benefits out of it. So I think a lot of summer running is sort of stepping back from pace. And then it's learning other weird tricks. If you can carry a water bottle that's half frozen, that sensation in the palm of your hand actually tells your brain that you're not as hot as you think you are, and can improve performance. So it's finding little tricks like that and things that kind of work for you, to get the mental piece around the fact that it's hot and it's going to feel different.
Rahaf, what's the hottest marathon you've ever run?
A few, because I have really bad luck, apparently. Berlin, when I ran it, was incredibly hot. Boston, the year I ran it, was also the second hottest starting. The temperatures were the second hottest at the start line. And people were vomiting left and right. I've never seen so much vomit in my life. Because with Boston, I mean, we go from winter to like, I mean, it's in April, you expect it to still be nice, but it wasn't. It was like 80 something. So it was very hard on the body. So those were a few. I've ran a really hot Chicago half. I think it was a rock and roll. I don't remember. And it was just horrible. They weren't prepared for it. They were literally pouring salt in the cups, and then they give it to you. Yeah, because they ran out of Gatorade and stuff. So it was horrible. So like for me, because I cover from head to toe, and I have to be really conscious of how I cover during the warmer weather. So I use a lot of cooling. I've used cooling arm sleeves that were really nice that I wear. Those really help. Dry fit material. I choose a lot of material that has the little holes in it where my skin isn't really showing, but it's still breathable. And I wear buffs, cooling buffs to cover my hair. And these are things in a cap, always a cap. So, and never forget your sunscreen, of course. But these are my tips for me personally of how I deal with the hot weather. And then of course, hydration. It's so hard because you always think you're so full and you're hydrated, but then you go into the race and you're like, oh shit, I could have done more. Oh, I hate that. But yeah. So
I'd love to shift gears a little bit and ask Sally, I'll start with you. How do you get out of the comparison trap? Specifically, maybe the comparison trap that we can fall into when it comes to comparing our current performances to our past performances. And I mean, I'm not ashamed to admit this. My birthday is tomorrow. I'm getting older. So how am I supposed to move forward and be just good with where I'm at? Not to say that there aren't new goals on the horizon, but sometimes we can be our own biggest critic, right?
You're so right. And I would almost say that it's rare if someone doesn't experience, seasons where you just are so, comparing yourself or looking at what other people are doing, or even being remorseful of, oh, remember when I used to be able, to do this. And I think what helped me was when I had kids, because I felt like, on one hand, like my body had changed so much. I had 2 emergency C-sections in less than 2 years, and that were both pretty traumatic. And so I realized, like, 1, I'm dealing with a totally different body. And 2, I'm dealing with a life schedule that is so different than what it was when I was younger. And so I really learned that life, if we really believe that it is a journey, if we really believe that the best is yet to come, then it's a lot easier to move forward, whether we've had a failure or we've had a success. And I think having had some pretty extreme events happen in my life helped me in that, because where I am today, if you would have told me where I was today 10 years ago, I would have laughed. I would have been like, what? And that actually is what propels me to go for it. It's like, what else is on the horizon? What else is going to happen? Like, this is the way it's supposed to be. I am supposed to be getting older. Like, things are supposed to look different. And things are supposed to feel different. That is part of this one wondrous journey. And so, but when I kind of zero in on just like a daily basis, I think keeping that daily focus of like, all I can control is today, and only I can live my day, and only I can put in the work that's going to amount to whatever it is that's down the road. So like, for example, I'm right now preparing for 6 races at the back half of this year. So June through November, I have some crazy things planned, and it's overwhelming when I look at it. And I'm doing things different than I did last year in my racing. And so I constantly have to tell myself, okay, this is the goal for this year. And this is the goal for this race. And then I take it down to the day. This is my goal for today. So I think it's just remaining in the moment and seeing yourself as, if I fail, I'm going to learn from that and get better. If I succeed, I'm going to learn from that and keep going. And it's all, just, it's a positive, you keep that positive perspective. And I think even if I get caught up in scrolling and being like, oh my gosh, they look so fit, or they're crushing it in the races, or they're doing this and that, and I totally am not doing that. I just kind of have a cue for myself where it's like, celebrate other people. Awesome. Celebrate other people, but remember, like, that's their life. I'm going to focus on my life. So I put limits on my social media apps to not spend too much time there. And I always tell myself, have the right perspective when I think about myself and when I'm looking at the world around me.
Do the best you can with what you have. Man, 6 races at the backside of this year. Would you say, Sally, that InsideTracker gives you a little bit of a competitive edge to have a better understanding about what's going on within your body?
Yeah. Like Amanda, I've been using InsideTracker since 2015. And, my biggest thing, I also dealt with some hormonal stuff too. Right after I had my son, I started having hot flashes. I was like, what? I'm only 28. Like, this is crazy. But it was nothing I'd ever dealt with, but I knew my mom had like a long history of it as well. So I wouldn't even say it's so much as a competitive edge as like this huge, like wondrous list of things that I can do just to make myself better that I didn't even realize would even help my performance. Because I think for most athletes, all we care about is just the actual sport and what we're doing. So I care about like running and getting that volume in and like being the best runner I can be. And it took me a while to understand that my sleep, what I'm eating, how I recover, all play a tremendous role in how well I train. So InsideTracker, I'll be honest, the first year when Jonathan approached me and was like telling me about it, I was like, I don't know, dude. Like, I don't know about this blood test. Like, I can just go to my doctor and get a full panel blood test. But he's like, no, like, this is totally different. Like, you get the blood test and there's actually information and steps to help you succeed. It isn't just telling you go take a supplement. It's here's the foods that are going to make you feel better. Here's suggestions to how you can train to be better. And so I think that for me, I do feel like I'm a better athlete because I'm paying attention to the things that were always there that I just wasn't educated about. So
makes a difference, makes a big difference. Amanda, what would you say from the foods perspective? You talked about some of your consideration with InsideTracker. What would you say have been some modifications that you have made to your diet as a result of the data that you've received?
So I am someone who is a very habitual eater. I will eat the same thing every day for years on end.
That was my problem.
Yes, it is. It's like, it's easy, but it's maybe not the best thing ever. So it is that reminder that like, okay, I enjoy salmon. Salmon has all of these things it's going to help me with. So how can you work that into your habitual schedule, like, and start making salmon part of it, or pumpkin seeds, like little things. And so I think for me, like, it's a slow process when you're so habitual, but it is like, okay, I'm going to start with that food. And then once it's in the house and kind of just becomes in the routine, then it's not a big deal, and kind of have kept adding things over the years. The one that Rahaf mentioned, beans, is another one that I know, like cholesterol. So I have not gotten consistent with it. So it's the one I'm working on right now, because again, I like them. They're just not currently part of the habit. So yeah.
But I think, as with anything, right? We were talking before we logged on about exercise and making it a regular habit and shifting things. And it's just beginning. And once you get over the hurdle of starting, then the rest of it, it gets a little bit easier from there. But starting, it can be really intimidating sometimes, even if it's just switching up your go-to meals.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
And the way that you operate in a grocery store, even. I mean, I think that like anything that you develop, let's say you're setting out for your first 5K training plan, it isn't just, oh, I need to get this running. It's like, oh, wait, I have to kind of like look at my schedule for the week now and be disciplined to plan when I'm going to get these runs in. And then I also have to be disciplined to how I'm going to refuel right after, what my pre-run meal is going to be. So I think when I first got my blood test, I was like, all the foods that they were like recommending, hey, this will help with your iron. I also have high cholesterol too, and it runs in my family as well. It's like shocking to me always. I'm like, what? Yeah. So for me, the stuff that they were suggesting, I was like, I never buy that stuff. Like, I think Brazil nuts like really help with cholesterol. It's like Brazil nuts. It's like, what? I don't think I've ever had a Brazil nut in my life.
So it's like, I don't know what a Brazil nut looks like.
Yeah. No joke. And so it was like going to the grocery store and like, hey, where are your Brazil nuts? Like what, but I love that part of it too. I think in anything you love in life, becoming a student is the best thing that you can do and never turning away from that. So having to learn how to shop differently, having to learn how to cook new things. I came up with like this bean salad. I eat a ton of beans. It's like this multi-bean salad. I came up with a dressing to put on it. Like that became really fun for me. But you're right, Amanda. It's like you then have to like make that a habit. It has to be something new in your life that you have to commit to. And then after, what is it? 3 weeks to create a habit? Is that it? 30 days? Or
Oh man. Okay. Well, we are starting to wind down here. I do want to say, if you're watching and you have a question that you want us to consider answering in the next 12 minutes, feel free to throw it into the chat. I do see one that came in here that says, what's a new food ingredient that you have all tried because of InsideTracker? That's a really great question for me. Also, I do want to make sure I say this, air fryer salmon will change your life. I'll hit you with the recipe. I'll hit you with my recipe and take
love salmon.
13 minutes. I have been actually, it's funny that you guys said beans. For me, I've been adding beans into my salads, just like literally from a can. Like they're already made, like topping them into my salads, into the mix of what I have going on. And it's been a really, really convenient way to both think about my cholesterol and also think about my iron a little bit.
Yeah. And it's filling too.
Yes.
You feel like full. Yeah. Yeah.
What other ingredients have you guys leaned into?
The one that pops up at me is 2 tablespoons of olive oil a day is what my app InsideTracker says for my cholesterol. Olive oil actually helps cholesterol, which is funny because I'm Middle Eastern and literally olive oil is our life. You can just bathe in it and it's just like, so I already am using it. I use it in everything. So I even have a recipe for a lemon olive oil cake.
Ooh, we post that.
Yeah.
I love lemon and I love olive oil.
It's amazing. It's so moist and so good.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I don't think they mean to eat cake, but they just.
I think they do.
Maybe.
I also think that it's important because sometimes, these foods or these things that conventionally we've been told the narrative is that it's quote unquote unhealthy or it's not good for you. It may just be in certain instances. So reframing the way that you use those words, or maybe don't use them at all. Everyone's different and your diet is going to be different based on a case by case person basis,
Yeah. And using whole ingredients, good ingredients, organic. And even Dina Castor says she'll eat cake, but not from the grocery store. She'll make it herself with whole great ingredients. I heard her say that at an expo. And I'm like, oh my God, she eats cake.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So you gotta balance and everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I found this awesome recipe for, I love banana bread and I make it with almond meal. It's almond meal. There's no eggs or dairy or any grain in it, but it is incredible. I found it on Pinterest.
Oh, Pinterest is so addictive.
It's so addictive, but I have found like when you are looking to create foods with, and making your own food is going to be healthier no matter what, because we don't know the amounts of other ingredients that they use if you grab fast food or processed stuff, but it becomes fun. It's like, if you know, there's another like chocolate pudding. Have you guys had the chocolate pudding that you make out of avocados and figs?
Yes, I've done that. Yes.
Cacao? It tastes
So
like it is so good.
Yeah,
it's amazing. So cooking, you know, I always just refer to it as like, you know, we're making fuel and using whole foods, like just their natural resources. You can make a lot of amazing desserts. I love dessert. I don't think I'll ever give that up. So I've found ways. I will find any way to get my dessert in. And so, making that avocado fig pudding has been pretty incredible.
Definitely. Now, I see someone chiming in the chat. Is it more important to prioritize the dietary recommendations or the lifestyle recommendations? I feel like it's on a case-by-case basis, but both are very important. Amanda, what do you say to one of your clients about that?
I mean, it's hard. Usually a lot of the lifestyle is going to be around cortisol that we were kind of talking about. And so, if your cortisol numbers are way up, nothing is going to feel great. So I'd like to get you to start there. But I'm also just a big fan of one change at a time. So pick one thing, you know, like I was saying, now that thing's a habit, now do the next thing. Because otherwise it's overwhelming and then you do nothing. So I'm start with one thing, make that like, okay, this is easy now. What's the next thing? And keep just chipping away at it.
Yeah. Make a SMART goal instead of trying to, you know, accomplish 20 goals at once. If you dedicate your focus to one thing at a time, you're going to be a little bit more successful in getting that one thing done so you can move on to the next one. Now, also, I saw a question come into the chat. How often are you guys taking rest days? I think Rahaf said that are you running 6 days a week, or what's your deal right now?
No, it's a mix of running and strength training and actually biking more too. Just signed myself up for a 63-mile, riding event. So trying these things. So, that to me is resting in a way, because it's not just road running. It's not that, repetitive, motion of just running, 6 miles every day or 5 miles or whatever. And then of course I incorporate easy days, low zone 2 riding or running. That to me is part of recovery, right? It's not just laying on the sofa, although that's of course recovery as well. But, and because, you got to have your blood moving, you got to have that circulation going on to heal the areas that need to be healed. So, I mean, that's kind of like what I do.
What's your rest day situation right now, Sally?
Rest days for me, I feel like when it comes to rest and recovery, I actually kind of do those like differently. So, like a full rest day is like, it might be like a bike ride with my family to go get like smoothies and coffee or something like that. We actually did that on Memorial Day. And then, maybe like a walk with the dog, like that's like really restful for me. I feel like if I do like nothing all day, my body actually doesn't feel great. And I think as humans, like it's good that we're like moving and breathing and getting in the sunshine. So typically I just say, for myself, I need to like still be active, but it's not a workout. There's no intensity. It's just like enjoying being outside with my family. And that like always rejuvenates me and gets me excited for the next day. A recovery day, like especially say like during the week, a recovery day will look like I'll go to the gym and maybe do like I'll just do mobility and stretching for like 45 minutes. Maybe I'll like warm up on the bike for like 10, 15 minutes. And then maybe in the evening, I'll go out for like a really easy recovery run, really low heart rate. I don't care about the pace. And all of that is just in preparation for the next days of training. So, but I typically do something every day. If I'm taking a rest day, it's not a training day in my mind, but I might still get out for like a walk or do something with my family. So.
Amanda, what about you?
Yeah, I would say very similar. So I also differentiate like rest versus active recovery days. So in my given week, I have 2 days that could both be active recovery, or one could be more of a rest and one active recovery. I kind of let my body tell me what it's needing. The majority of the time it's active recovery. And for me, I might do strength training even on one of those days, because I'm like, I've really got quite a bit of energy, and like, I'm not doing cardio strength training. I'm doing just strength. And so that kind of works out. Every once in a while though, I can tell like, no, you need to sit today. Like, you need to chill. If you want to like walk around the block, that's cool, but like sit and just let yourself be. And those are hard mentally sometimes, right? Because we are used to doing stuff. But if I've hit that point where I can feel that, then I know I'm going to get a major benefit out of it. And usually I do. I feel immediately better the rest of the week. So yeah, I think it's a lot of that mental shift around the benefits and continuing to tell ourselves like resting is training.
Resting is training. I love that. I think it's a good note for us to wind down here on. I do, of course, want to say thank you, all of you, so much for your time. I did see a few more questions coming into the chat. With that said, some of them can be a little bit specific for a case-by-case basis. So if you have any questions about what's going on with you and your body, I highly, highly encourage you to talk to an expert and get the lowdown on what is best for you and what you have going on. A huge thank you to InsideTracker for bringing all of us together today. And of course, a happy Global Running Day to all of you. Before I let you ladies go, why don't we go around and remind the folks that are watching this conversation how they can follow along with you, how they can keep up with you. So first and foremost, Sally, give us the deets.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am Yellow Runner and SallyMcRae.com.
Beautiful. Thank Amanda?
Runtothefinish.com and Run to the Finish on pretty much every social platform.
Rahaf?
Same here. Run Like a Hijabi on Instagram and runlikeahijabi.com.
I am over at Emily Abbate and over, of course, at Hurdle Podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts. And of course, again, a huge shout out to InsideTracker for bringing us all together. Thank you, everyone, and happy Global Running Day.